The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, and thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week we review 2 Austin Road victories. We'll preview the upcoming match in Atlanta, and then we'll also speculate on some player transfers. My name is Landon Cottom, and I'm joined as always by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
Jeremiah, I meant to bring this up on last week's show, and because it was kind of a hurried affair and I was rushing home from the airport to be on the show in time, I kind of forgot. But I believe last week was our 100th episode.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
It's hard to believe.
In our hosting website, it's listed at higher than that, but the Swoon Tower episodes kind of throw it off a little bit. And so I went back and counted, and I believe last week was 100. So this is number 101.
That's kind of exciting. So episode 1 was... Do you remember?
February of 2020.
Okay. And so we didn't have a team. I have no idea what we talked about.
Yeah, February 2020. Yeah, I don't. Quick correction. Our first episode was actually in June of 2020, not February. Back to the show. Somebody, I can't remember his last name. Logan. It's not one of Los Logans that are always at Hop Squad, but another Logan that is in Los Verdes said that he and a friend are driving to Colorado this weekend, and because our episode was late, that he was going to make his friend listen to the first ever episode of Moon Tower Soccer. It's like, why would you do that to anybody?
Oh man, yeah. Even last year when we had some weeks that were tough in terms of talking about games without great outcomes, I think the shows over the last year or so have definitely been a lot easier than those early shows, and we've talked about this in various places. But when we were reading like neighborhood association meeting minutes when they were talking to Jordan Inky in order to fill an hour, or covering whoever the latest sponsor might be, or I think we spent a few weeks like trying to guess who the stadium naming rights might have. Like, all those things are blessedly in the past. So it's been a lot of fun, man. And we've done, as opposed to the last show that we did, like we've done all these virtually too, right?
Yeah, we have, because we started the independent show during the pandemic, or I guess the early, like maybe we did some of those together, but I think almost all of them are virtual, which is wild. But yeah, here's to another 100 years of Moon Tower Soccer.
Maybe not 100 years. Here's another 100 shows at least.
I said years and I meant it. All right, let's get into some Austin FC news. So Brad Stuver was nominated for the ESPN Humanitarian of the Year. I saw this headline come out, and I was thinking like, oh, okay, like there's quite a few people on the list or whatever, and then checked it and was like, no, there's 4 people nominated, and Brad Stuver is one of them.
Yeah, 4 people across every professional sport in the United States. I mean, it's him, Anthony Barr of the NFL, of the Minnesota Vikings, Albert Pujols of the St. Louis Cardinals, and Karl Anthony Towns of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, this is not like a little MLS kind of deal. Like, it's the entire world. Well, not the entire world, but it's like the entire country of American sports, which is pretty exciting. I can't imagine there's been a ton of soccer players that have even been up for this.
Yeah, no, I would be shocked if there was another MLS player that had been up for it. So it looks like the ceremony is Wednesday, July 20th. Who's on Austin's schedule at that point in time? Because I believe I read that they were hoping to be able to go to the ceremony. We played Dallas on the 16th, and then the Red Bulls on the 24th. So it would be pretty amazing if Brad and Ashley got to attend, and then got like actually won and got to go on stage at the ESPYs. Like, that's a big deal. And for Austin FC to be represented on that, like, that's amazing.
That is a huge deal. And it's just, I mean, we've always known that they were wonderful people and have done a lot. But I don't have a lot of context for like what other players and what other markets do. Like, I mean, it seems like they're really involved in the community and do a ton of work, but I think this is really reinforcement that is true, that they're just uniquely positioned as wonderful humans who are doing a lot of good for a lot of people that are very marginalized sort of in today's environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we've covered the feel good part of the show. Now let's get into the more salacious part of the show, Jeremiah, and talk about transfer rumors. And so the first one is Cecilio Dominguez. What have we heard about Cecilio Dominguez so far, Jeremiah?
Well, we've heard Twitter rumors, I think. So we heard that his family was going away, and then we heard that he was having a going away party, but then also we heard that maybe it was like really just a going away party for his family. So like there's nothing very specific, but it seems like things are underfoot for him to go, and I think you can tell that from sort of his lack of appearances or even on the bench or anything too. Like he's been a very a non-entity as a player over the last several weeks.
Yeah, without him, when we talked about this on the show a few weeks ago, that Pachuca game and then the away game in Montreal after the long international break, everyone thought those were going to be the games that if they're going to ease him back in the team, those are the games to do it in, because one was not on TV, one was in a different country. And so, like, try it then if you're going to do it. The fact that he's still not seen the bench for an Austin FC game, I would put a lot of money on the fact that he is not going to be here much longer, either on loan or being sold. The question is, where is he going to go? And I think that is a big question, because who will take him at this point? Like he carries significant baggage at this point. So who do you think would actually take him right now?
I mean, I think he has to go back to South America. I mean, I could see him going back to Paraguay or going somewhere else. I mean, people have different. I think that baggage is different in other places than it is in Major League Soccer, in this country, given where they are. And I think, and I've seen some of this stuff online about how like, oh, well, Austin should play him some so that people can see that he's still got talent and whatever. But like, I don't buy that argument either. Like, teams all around the world know who Cecilio Dominguez is, and just because he hasn't played for a few weeks, I don't think that really changes his value. So I think they're still like trying to find the right situation to take the least financial loss possible in terms of getting him somewhere else. And that may well be a loan right now.
Yeah. And I think a loan is almost certainly the most viable option, just because he's on significant money. Is it 1.7 million, I think, is his salary for Austin FC. A lot of leagues, you said South America. I think you're right. I think that is the most likely destination. A lot of the leagues in South America, 1.7 million is a really big contract. And so a loan, if that happens, I mean, like a loan or a sale, you're going to have to find a team that's willing to pay his salary. And so with a loan, Austin FC can continue to pay part of his salary. The tricky part there is that whatever part that Austin FC is still playing still counts against the Austin FC salary budget. And so you see a situation like Miami. What's his name? Rodolfo Pizarro is playing in Mexico right now, but still counts as a designated player for Miami because Miami is still carrying that much of his salary. And so because Dominguez is on significantly lower money than Pizarro is on, that's less of a risk, but still a risk. Like, it's still a possibility. And so just like finding the right puzzle piece to fit into that gap is going to be tricky. I hope they can make it happen, just because it would be pretty miserable to watch this drag on for the rest of the season, and maybe for the rest of another season, depending on how long his contract is. But I'm hoping this will be done soon.
Yeah, I agree. And we had another rumor. I mean, I don't know if it counts as a rumor or not, but we had a Diego Fagundez rumor. I think it was the first one that we saw, right? Everybody was ready for like transfer season shenanigans, and then the first one we saw was like, oh, maybe Diego's going out to Uruguay.
Not that kind of transfer.
It's the other way. We want it going the other way.
Yeah. So this rumor was stated that it was the team Nacional in Uruguay would be buying Diego Fagundez. I don't put a lot of stock in this rumor for a few reasons. One of which is this one Twitter account was the only place I saw this mentioned. Doing some Google searches, looking through Twitter, nobody else picked this up. Nobody else was talking about it. It was one anonymous Twitter account that I think the name of is like the name you can choose is like transfers. And then it was like Uruguay signings or something is the @. And so there's a lot of these anonymous accounts that deal in unsubstantiated transfer rumors. This seems like one of them. The fact that it's just that place and nowhere else makes me think it's BS. Another thing is that according to Transfermarkt, Nacional in Uruguay, their record transfer fee that they've paid is 1.1 million. There might be something not accounted in there that maybe they're missing, but they had not paid many transfer fees very high at all, and the highest one listed in Transfermarkt is 1.1 million. It would cost more than 1.1 million to get Diego Fagundez away from Austin FC at this point.
Yeah, for sure. So let's discount that one. So let's say that we're gonna stand pat at least during this season. Although, we still maybe have Rodney and whatever. But let's go to the more interesting things and talk about transfers.
So one thing about I want to say one more thing about the Diego thing. I'm not saying it's impossible for Diego to leave, because it is possible, but Austin's not going to let him walk away at this point. Like, we talked about this a few episodes back. Does he deserve more money? Sure he does. But this is the contract he agreed to. Whenever that contract's up, he holds all the chips. Like, the ball is in Austin's court. Like, pay the man or he's going to leave. Like, that part is true. But the fact that he's going to leave right now for no money is not true at all. So, yeah. Okay, let's move on to the inward transfer. So we got green smoke from Anthony Precourt on Twitter today. Austin FC fans will know that means we're going to be announcing a signing probably tomorrow, as history has taught us. So no names have officially been attached to this, but there's one that's been floating around Twitter very prominently, to an extent that it's almost got to be this guy, right?
Yeah, it's the only, because there's this name and there's no other names. It's not like there are two or three different guys being speculated about that we're all sort of scouting is a very loose thing, because I know somebody mentioned that we've all watched like one YouTube highlight video about this guy at this point, and I think we will probably have more to come later once we know. But yeah, let's talk about this rumor.
Yeah, okay. So the name is Washington Corozo. Corozo is a 23-year-old Ecuadorian winger. He's currently at Pumas in Mexico. He had 5 goals and 1 assist in 28 appearances at Pumas. Most of those appearances as a substitution. I think he had 11 starts for Pumas, including, and that was league starts. He also played in both legs of the CONCACAF Champions League against the Seattle Sounders, which I would like to go back and kind of watch those games now,
pay more attention.
watching him, just because like it's sometimes watching guys in another league, it's hard to know like what the level is, but I know what the Sounders level is. And so if we can watch him play against the Sounders, like, you have a pretty good idea of what the guy looks like. So I'll definitely be doing that if it ends up being this guy. Kevin Morris posted this on Twitter, and he says, some quick Transfermarkt math puts Washington Corozo at about 1 goal per 256 minutes for Pumas in Liga MX, mostly as a sub. That's certainly not bad. And then for reference, he adds, Cecilio Dominguez, our top goal scorer last year, was 1 goal per 340 minutes. So 256 to 340. It's not numbers that's going to stand out and be like, okay, this is going to be the guy. He's going to be the man on the team. But those numbers to be like one of the guys fighting for a spot in that attacking line, like, it's pretty good, especially for a 23-year-old playing in a really high-level league like Liga MX.
Yeah, you're looking at a 23-year-old winger, left winger, right, primarily. So he fits a significant positional need. And the year before he played, was he playing in his home league the year before? Is that right?
Yeah, he played in Ecuador, and then had a really good season, I think, in 2020.
Yeah, in 2020 he scored 16 goals. So he's got a good track record.
Oh shit! Sorry, I'm just looking up his.
Never mind. In 2020 he scored 6 goals.
Oh no! So yeah, so in he comes from Independiente del Valle. That's where his his academy team is, but then he was playing in Peru in 2020 and had 8 goals in 28 appearances that season. And then it looks like 7 goals in 34 appearances total for Pumas. So again, a young player. Looking at kind of the reaction online of Pumas fans, I mean, take it with a grain of salt what fans of Liga MX's teams say about players that are leaving, because I think you can find whatever opinion you want generally. But yeah, I don't know if this is the guy. I don't know that we should expect him to come in and save the day and like we're definitely winning MLS Cup, but it is like a definitely a bump up in level at winger depth, which is something it seems like we need right now. When we're playing a 17-year-old central midfielder at winger as the starter most games, like this is a step up in level for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's a young talent who's had some success. We don't know money-wise exactly what it's going to be, but I imagine he's not going to cost a ton. I mean, Transfermarkt has him at like $880K as his value. So,
but I
why
think
not?
he's out of contract, and so I don't know that we'll necessarily be paying a transfer fee. In any case, I saw Jorge Iturralde, who is, I think he's a Leon fan. Sorry, Jorge, if this is wrong, but I think he's a Leon fan, but pays attention to Mexican soccer for sure. He's not excited about this guy, and he was saying if we sign this guy as a DP, that he's going to be pretty upset about it. I don't think a guy of this profile would be a designated player for Austin. I would guess like TAM level maximum, just because if you look at guys like Romagna, Valencia, guys that we brought in from South American teams, paid a transfer fee for, and we know what we're paying those guys, and those guys aren't DPs. Like, I think we can keep this guy below DP level as well. So I'm not super concerned about that. I too would be concerned if this was a DP signing, but you have to remember we currently have technically 4 designated players. Yeah. If you count Tomas Pochettino, if he were to come back, I think we could do some things to correct this if he were to come back, but he was a designated player when he left Austin. And so until Cecilio Dominguez is officially gone, or until Tomas Pochettino is officially off the books, we do not have space for a designated player right now. So I would find it really strange that they would announce him this week as a designated player if we still have 3 designated players on the books and they haven't announced anything about any of them. So I'm not too worried about that. But as far as what we saw in the highlight reels, I'll be watching more, and we'll we'll bring more info on this than just like the YouTube highlight reel. But he looks fast. He's like decent size, like pretty well built. So not like a small fast guy, but like a pretty good size fast player. Quick with the ball at his feet. Plays well with both feet. I just saw him hitting shots and crosses with both his right and left foot in there. So it's exciting. We're expecting this announcement to come on Wednesday, July 6th. Jeremiah, we're going to throw our hats over the fence now and say we're going to have a special episode out on Thursday, probably Thursday around noon, and it'll be strictly dedicated to whoever this signing is. So we'll do some homework on Wednesday. On Thursday, we'll get a special episode out on this signing, and that way you don't have to wait a whole week for that to happen.
Although I have this great fear that it's going to end up being like the second coming of Big Celery, and we're going to have to try to find a way to fill like 30 minutes or something around that. But I given all the speculation so far, I think it's pretty safe to say that this is going to be somebody that we do want to talk about. I want to ask about this Eden Azar rumor, because I was out of town. I was out of town last week, and I just saw like hundreds of posts in Los Verdes Slack about. I mean, this is like nonsense, right? Is this it's like the Geniac of 2022, or what is this?
People are going to be mad at me for saying this.
Okay.
Especially folks over at the False Nine who are maybe the key suspects in perpetuating this rumor. But this one seems like one of those that was like, let's see if we can start a transfer rumor. So Eden Hazard is not going to be the announcement tomorrow. I can almost guarantee.
Okay. You don't think so? I'm pretty sure we would know if that was the case, but yeah. So no potential to bring that guy in.
One other we saw was Christian Ramirez. He played for Minnesota United and Houston for a while. He's been over in Scotland, had a really good season in Scotland last year, and there was one publication in the UK linking him to Austin FC, but again, it's one of those where I did not see this written anywhere else. It was pretty much like everything was like Christian Ramirez might go back to MLS, and this one article chose to tag us in it for whatever reason.
I was going to say, yeah, it was only connected to Austin FC through the fact that they tagged Moon Tower Soccer in the striker, maybe, or was it just us? I don't know.
I can't remember, but in any case, this does not seem likely. And also, like, I just can't see us signing another striker right now. I think maybe in the offseason we'll sign one, but I think right now the guys we have are the guys we're going to have.
Yeah, among the holes in this roster, this is not one of my primary concerns. Like, we're getting we'll get into this with the games this week, but we're definitely getting fine production, especially compared to last year out of the striker position.
All right, so let's move on to the Charlotte match. So this was the first of 2 away wins for Austin FC this match week. Looking at the lineup for this game, I guess we should say, it ended up 1-0 with a Danny Pereira goal, but Danny Pereira was not in the starting 11 for this game, which was a little bit surprising for some, I think. But Josh Wolf said, I think this was in the post-game press conference. This is a quote from him. He said, he's taken some bad yellows and some bad reds. I don't think it would have been right to put him back in to start this game. We've got a competitive group and we've been grinding, and the last game was a grind as well. So I thought Felipe did a good job with Alex in there making it difficult. Pepe came in and showed a little responsibility, maturation, and obviously his quality. Danny said this in an interview after the game as well, that like he said, I let the team down and I needed to make it up to him. So it seems like they're all on the same page there. I think it says something that Josh is like willing to sit a guy that's been one of his better players this season, and essentially kind of punish him for making bad decisions.
And that worked for all of 35 minutes or whatever, right? Because when we get into the next match, when we talk about Danny getting some cheap yellows or reds, we're gonna get back into that topic too.
Yeah, for sure. So the starting lineup against Charlotte ended up being Stuver in goal, and then left to right on the back line was Gallagher, Romagna, Gabrielson, Lima, Felipe, and Ring as your 6 and 8/6. Then Fagundez, Driussi, Owen Wolf, and Danny Husin starting at striker because Maxi Urruti did not travel due to back issues from a small knock he sustained during the previous game. So Maxi not on the bench. Julio Cascante also suffered a hamstring injury in the previous game, and so he did not travel, was not available. That left us with just Kipp Keller on the bench as depth here, which we ended up needing because Johan Romagna came out with a head injury. They said that he took a knock, and I think I know when it happened. There was a long ball that he jumped up and knocked heads with, I can't remember which Charlotte player it was, but knocked heads with someone, and they both kind of went down. After the fact, it was told that he passed concussion protocol at the moment, then again at halftime, and then in the 50th minute of the game ends up coming off, and they have to put Kipp Keller in for the rest of the game. And he was devastated to come off, wasn't he?
Yeah, he looked really. Yeah, he did not look it all in a good place to come off. Okay, so this is going to be kind of graphic, but didn't he barf on the field?
That's what was reported. I did not see it, but
I didn't see either. I was watching this from New Mexico on like my laptop, so I didn't have the best view of the thing. But yeah, it was definitely not in a good spot when he came off.
Yeah, so we do not know what his prognosis is. He was not available for the next game either, so we'll see what that looks like. But anyway, this game was a little bit I don't know, how would you describe this game?
This is one of those games, and we've talked about this before when we've like watched games with our family, maybe you're not into the sport, and this is not a good game to try to convince like my uncle and cousins that soccer's and MLS are like a wonderful competition, because it was, I don't know, that was pretty bad overall all the way around.
Yeah, so I think Charlotte felt like 2021 Austin in this game. They had most of the ball. I think they ended the game with 64% possession. They got into some pretty good spots in possession, but didn't have the quality or the creativity to finish any of them off, which again sounds like Austin, and had some like major horseshoe of sadness vibes going on for a lot of the game.
Yeah, they did. And who was it? Was it Swiderski? Like somebody after the game said like, "Oh, we totally dominated this, and I can't believe that we lost it." In the post game from Charlotte, I think that's who it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they were better on the night, but like I don't feel like either team was very good. So I feel like saying that they dominated the match was a little bit of an overstatement.
I think possession wise, you can say they did. They only had 9 shots and only forced 2 saves from Stuver. That not including one that went off the post that was almost in. So you could say that was a decent one. They played 16 crosses in. Do you know how many of those crosses connected with a Charlotte player directly?
Not very many. 3?
0.
Okay.
Brad Stuver caught 8 or 9 of them. I was counting on my rewatch. At least 8, it may be more. But not touched them, not punched them away, but caught them. 8 or 9 of the 16. So not great. Like the Joswiak, I think, is that right winger. He got into some dangerous spots. But yeah, it's just not a lot of creativity. So I think Austin was maybe a bit fortunate in that regard. But they went on the road against a team who has been really hard to beat at home. They had lost 1 game at home, is that right? I think their very first one they lost against the Galaxy, and since then had not lost at home. And Austin played a gritty, stingy game, capitalized on a chance when they got it. And like that's what good teams do. It wasn't the prettiest game, but it's what good teams do to keep collecting points throughout a season. And this is not a thing that we would have seen Austin do last year, probably. So I think, although it wasn't a great game of soccer to watch, I think it's an encouraging game for Austin FC.
Yeah, as a fan of Austin FC, for sure. So let's talk about that one opportunity, because it's Danny Pereira. So Danny Pereira comes off the bench.
Yeah, in the 59-13 is the mark on the clock. And I think about 2 minutes later is when he scores this goal.
And this goal
is maybe one of his first touch. No, I think he was involved in the build up there. But yeah, it was a rocket of a goal. So Ring ends up dummying a pass into the box. It gets kicked out of the box. It falls to Lima. Lima lays it off to Pereira at the top of the box. He had Driussi open there a little bit further away, which, like, I know in hindsight you say, like, yeah, he did the right thing. But in that moment, I would be thinking, like, play it to Driussi. But yeah, goes to Danny at the top of the box. He takes a touch with his left foot. Nobody steps to him quick enough, so he has time to kind of repossession onto his stronger right foot. Lets it rip. It knuckles into the top left corner, goes off the crossbar, down onto the turf, back up off the crossbar, and then into the goal.
Yeah, two things about this goal. One, like the X goal on this one is 0.03, which shows that it's maybe not the greatest attempt. This is one of their only 5 shots on the night, right? And then 2, is that the farthest out we've scored a goal? Like in my recollection, because I mean it's well outside the 18 at that point. I can't think of one from farther out, but also I have a short memory.
I feel like maybe as far as like official measuring, maybe it would be, but the one that Driussi scored against Houston, how do you measure that? Because he hit it far post. And so if you measure it from where he hit it to where it goes into the goal, I think it was further. But if you just measure it to the goal line, it maybe wasn't further out.
Okay, that's probably true. And this was probably pretty much from the middle of the field too. Here, Pereira's goal, more or less.
Yeah, slightly off axis to the left there, but like, yeah, top of the box, pretty dead on. So this goal, looking at kind of what Austin was doing tactically in this game, this goal starts off with a tactical idea that Wolf has implemented more this year to get the team playing a bit more direct at times. So whenever usually the 6, like whoever the deepest midfielder is, receives the ball from wide, a lot of times their first move will be to turn and look to switch the field either to a winger stretching deep, like in behind, or to the fullback that's pushing up. So the ball falls to Danny after a throw in. And this is, I think, his first touches. As soon as he receives it, he immediately turns and finds Lima out to the right, who plays it forward to Wolf. And then whenever Wolf receives it approaching the box, he's got 4 guys crashing the box on the far side, plus Lima kind of floating behind him for like the safe outlet pass. And then Pereira trailing behind that late arriver who ends up receiving the ball. But this is a thing that, like, this more direct play that I think we'll see in the Colorado game as well. I think we've seen it at home, some more moments when to look for a direct option. But I think on these road games, this is a thing that we've seen different, where it's not going 5 at the back and parking the bus. It's just being a bit more pragmatic in this possession game and trying some direct movements instead of trying to like pass it around all the time, so that you can keep a slightly more reserved shape, but still take some chances with these longer balls.
Yeah, and that overall is something that we've noticed, right? Is like Austin is not winning a possession game as much in matches, and they're getting good outcomes from those, like this one and some other ones that are recent.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Is there any other moments we want to talk about in this game? I know we have a lot of game to talk about here.
Yeah, there was not a lot of game that excited me. I think after giving up on Nick Lima like 2 weeks ago, I felt like he had a really good game in the previous match, and I felt he was really good against Charlotte too. So maybe he's whatever kind of funk he was in, or whatever bad run of form he was on, maybe he's sort of turning it around, because I thought he looked really good in this one.
Yeah. So one thing I will say about the fullbacks there. So looking at how the midfielders were playing, to start off with Pereira off the field, Ring was the deepest midfielder. Felipe floating back at times as well, and maybe not playing as far forward as Ring would in that same position. But when Danny came on, he was the lone 6. And the same thing we'll see in the Colorado game. Danny started and was the lone 6 in the game. So we were thinking maybe Wolf had changed his mind and was going to be playing Ring as that 6, but it doesn't look like it's the case. If Danny's on the field, he's going to be playing the 6 for the most part. But the fullbacks. So in this game, they're set up in defense, regardless of how we're attacking in defense. It's generally a 4-4-2 with whoever one of those 8s, the 8 that's not Driussi, drops in beside the 6, and they play in like a flat line there. So in this game, we've seen at times the fullbacks stay narrow, and they'll expect the wingers to chase out to the wing to play it, to cover the wide balls. In this Charlotte game, the fullbacks were jumping these wide balls immediately, and the defensive mids were very quick to rotate into that space behind them. And so this was a little defensive shift that we saw in this game that I think paid off. And Austin in general, especially as we went on into this game, and Charlotte was getting cross after cross after cross and had the ball and were working the ball around, Austin's rotation was excellent. And to be able to do that, to have the persistence and the just like the grit to do that and stay organized in those moments, because whenever they're passing the ball, they're trying to disorganize you, try to move you around. And as a player steps out, if someone doesn't drop into that spot, that's where, as a tired team, you can get beat. And Austin just didn't get beat. Again, we said maybe a lack of creativity on Charlotte's part, but we didn't make it easy for them. And I think that's, again, comparing it to 2021 Austin FC, these are the times when we folded, and it didn't happen in that game.
Yeah, if you look at, like, after Pereira scores at 62, the next 4 shots are all Charlotte shots. That's all they would get in the last 30 minutes, and none of them were very never were very strong attempts. They just, like, Austin stayed disciplined and stayed home, and I never felt like they were, like, Charlotte was too threatening, even with the way it was going, even with the possession or whatever. Like, they were keeping the shots in the middle of the field, and they're keeping them to, like, low percentage shots.
Okay, well, I think we can leave the Charlotte game at that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll recap the Colorado game, and then we're also going to answer a couple of listener questions and then preview the upcoming game in Atlanta. So hang tight. We'll be right back.
All right, Landon, let's talk about Austin Daily Drop. And this time, you will not be trying to shovel in dinner while I do this one, because we don't have Wellhausen around to sub in. So Austin Daily Drop is a gathering of the local news stories that Austin broadcasting veteran Chris Mosier finds impactful and interesting, served up as a quick daily digest.
The Austin Daily Drop covers everything from city government to local business to sports, live music, dining, everything else in between. You heard Chris Wellhausen say that he is a recent convert and doesn't miss an episode now. You should be like Chris and listen to the show.
The pod is dropped by 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. Usually runs between 8 and 10 minutes long, which is the length of a short commute or a short shower, or about how long it takes either of my kids to eat dinner so they can go back to playing video games.
Give Chris 10 minutes and he'll give you Austin. Jeremiah, we are doing another ticket giveaway thanks to Sage Wilson Property Group for the next home match. To enter, you can go to moontowersoccer.com, then click on the free ticket giveaway in the top navigation bar, or click on the link in the show notes and fill out the form.
This is made possible by Sage Wilson Property Group. So if you or someone you know are in need of Sage real estate advice in Austin, talk to our friends at Sage Wilson Property Group.
And as always, Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education.
You can go to fef.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's fef.law. All right, we are back. We are going to recap the Austin FC game in Colorado on July 4th. This game ended 2-3 in favor of Austin. It did not look like that was going to be the case after about 22 minutes, did it?
No, I was in a really bad spot. And even, even after those 2 goals, like I think I posted this somewhere, but it was like, that was the ugliest 2-2 halftime score that I've seen out of this club so far. Cause it just felt like we were slow and we were on the back foot, but we just rose up in those moments and managed to score some goals. We even scored a bonus goal, which we'll get into. Maxi Arruti did it, so nice he had to do it twice in the second half. But early in this match, I did not feel very good. This did not feel like a repeat of the Den Verde performance from last season.
So before that first goal went in, the first, 18 minutes, I actually felt pretty good about the game. Am I alone in that? Or did you start feeling bad before then, or were you feeling nervous already?
I feel like we've looked a little sloppy. Like I don't know if I would get depressed and more depressed as the goals came in from Colorado, but did not feel like they were playing very crisp or clean, even from the opening. But you did?
Well, I think there was some encouraging signs. The fact that, we were keeping the ball, which again is the thing that we haven't been doing on the road. Maybe we shouldn't do it. But the press was being pretty effective as well, and we're forcing Colorado just to play long, hopeful balls, which I guess really is like one of their strengths, is like they're happy to play those, just like, okay, there's pressure in the back, we're just going to launch it. And then hope for a second ball, and then for a fast guy to get in the end of it, which in the end is maybe a good strategy for them to go with because it worked a few times. But we were keeping the ball, we were moving the ball, getting into decent spots, and then maybe being shaky at moments as well. But I didn't feel terrible about the game until the first goal, really.
Okay, so I felt like that maybe early on. I'm willing to agree with that, but there was this Abubakar header at 15.
Yeah,
that I feel like could have had a good attempt, a better attempt, and then Danny gets a yellow card at 18, and like those are sort of my first memories of the game, which were both before the goal.
Yeah, okay.
But I was and then I was like super frustrated with Danny because it was really dumb from that point forward. That's what I started like worked into my depression about maybe how this was going to go.
Yeah, so let's talk about Danny's card while we're on the subject. So he gets his quote unquote fifth yellow card now,
7th or 12th or whatever, depending upon your counting. But yeah,
in any case, he is suspended for the Atlanta game. This was a silly foul that did not need to happen. It was a kind of a soft one, but whenever you put your hand on a shoulder of an MLS veteran, like a guy that's been in the league, a smart player like Mark Anthony Kaye, you give him the opportunity to go down in a moment where he really had nowhere to go, which was what makes the foul silly to begin with, right? Like, just hustle back and keep pressure on him. No need to grab him in that moment. He grabs him. Kaye knows he's got nowhere to go, feels a hand on his shoulder, goes down, gets the yellow. Like, is it slightly soft? Are there refs who maybe wouldn't have given it? Sure. But I think it's fair. Like, I don't think we have any reason to argue with this yellow card. I think it's on Danny. Like, he needs to be smarter in that moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. In the moment, I was like, Kaye makes everything he can out of this, but why not? To your point, it was like a smart veteran play on his part.
So that first goal comes in the 19th minute. This was a free kick. Lawless Abubakar, one of their center backs, is lined up way wide. They were doing this interesting formation on these free kicks where instead of everyone kind of lining up in a straight, like compact line on one side of the box, they would line up people all the way across the box and make Austin's defenders stretch out really broad. And so Abubakar starts on the far side, and as soon as the free kick taker takes the run up, he starts sprinting. And Kipp Keller is the player closest to him. He's the one who's supposed to be marking this player. I think he's running in and he's watching the ball, which is what you're supposed to do. He kind of knows where Abubakar is. I think Kipp is thinking in this moment, like, I've got the header covered, so I'm good. Like, if Abubakar comes up with his head, I'm here. Abubakar did not go up with his head. He gets a body on Keller, stretches his foot out, and dinks it over the top of Stuver, which is a really great finish by Abubakar there, but kind of an amateur coverage by Keller there. A little bit naive to think that he had done enough, because had he been paying attention or just a bit more smart in that moment, physically he could have done what he needed to do. It was just a mental thing that he didn't do what he needed to do.
Yeah, and I didn't notice that until the replay. Like, in the watching it live, I thought, like, wow, that was a really, like, to your point, like, that was a really good finish from Abubakar. And then on the replay, I was like, oh, well, there were things that happened that allowed him to make that clever finish, and it maybe was not Kippy's finest moment. Yeah,
so Kipp Keller, I thought he did pretty good in the Charlotte game for the most part. And in this game, maybe not as good. Like, you still see his good traits in this game, but I don't think he was great.
Yeah, I think you see him for what he is right now. There's things that he does well, but he lacks some awareness. We've talked about lack of tactical awareness and these kind of things that hopefully you learn at some point, right? That it's just from like being a guy 1 year out of St. Louis University and playing at the top level in the league, and then he just kind of gets back to this, like, he's just kind of clumsy sometimes, and even And the way he moves, he kind of oversells it, right? Which we'll get to his second yellow in a little bit, but like his second yellow, if he was a more crafty player, maybe he doesn't get that call. But it's just like the way he runs around and the way he plays the game, like he draws those kinds of things.
Yeah, his athleticism and reaction time are already at the MLS level. He's good enough in those categories. His positioning and decision making still need to improve. And another thing that I'd really like to see him work on is adding some deception to his on-ball game. If you watch Gabrielsen and Cascante, I think especially Cascante, they do a really good job of disguising passes either with their eyes or with their body shape, or sometimes they'll kind of take a touch one direction and then put their foot on it and turn the other direction just to get the defense moving, and then turning back the other way to see if space is opened up. These are little things that if Kipp Keller can add them to his game, those are going to be the little things that kind of make him a top level defender. And he's not doing them yet. Like whenever he plays a pass, he receives the ball and then looks where he's going to play it.
Yeah.
And then plays it there. And he plays a clean ball. He plays an accurate ball, but there's never really much of a surprise of where it's going to go whenever he plays it. And then decision making, you see in this first yellow, what was the first? Oh, he just like puts a shoulder through.
He looked like
someone.
Yeah, he looked like a linebacker on the first yellow, like the 41.
Yeah, so does that. The second one was kind of, again, just kind of one of these like rookie mistakes where he wins the ball, but he also leaves his studs up, and those studs find an ankle pretty firmly. And so again, it's another one of those where another ref on another day maybe doesn't give it, but he opened the door. And Danny, again, with his yellow, you open the door, and either in Danny's case, a veteran player makes the most of it, or in this case, the ref sees your studs go into a guy's ankle. You're opening the door for that to happen, and whatever happens after that is fair game, and I don't think you can complain about it. And so I know I saw some people online hoping that maybe Keller's second yellow would get rescinded after some type of review board or something. I would not hold my breath on that. I do not think this yellow card's going away. I do not think Kipp Keller will be able to play in Atlanta.
Which, when we get to Atlanta preview, may be a real problem.
Yeah. Okay, second goal was in the 22nd minute. So we're pressing Colorado pretty high most of the game. And like I said before, they're happy just to boot it long and hope for those second balls. So this happens in the 22nd minute. Keller is going up against Diego Rubio, their striker, one of their forwards. I guess Zardes was the other one. Doesn't win the ball. It bounces. Rubio turns and kind of spins Keller and gets past him. And so Gabrielsen and Jimenez are the only players back at this point. Diego Rubio gets to the ball, plays it forward. And at that moment, like when the ball bounces, Keller doesn't win it and the ball bounces. At that point, Gabrielsen either needs to step really hard and try to win that ball in the air, not let it bounce again, and just head it up in the air and to give himself time to drop, or he needs to start dropping more aggressively because he sees Lewis on rushing. He doesn't do either of those things. He just kind of continues to like backpedal at a medium pace. And so when Rubio plays that ball, Jonathan Lewis is a fast player. And so he turns and starts chasing. Jimenez is also chasing, and Lewis just leaves both of them in his dust. He ends up one-on-one with Stuver, and again, a good finish. He kind of fakes a tougher shot, and then as Stuver starts to move, just chips it over the top of him and puts it in. But I think Kipp needs to do better in winning the ball there. And then I think Gabrielsen needs to do a little bit better once that ball hits the ground to not let that happen. But you have to be more aware of a player as fast as Lewis in that situation.
Yeah, I think this was one of the concerns that we had. It's just like Colorado having some fast guys and us having some inexperienced, and just Austin's defense can break down with that kind of speed. And we would see it later in the match, right when what's his face?
Michael Barrios.
When Barrios comes on and just that speed differential like really revealed itself then.
Yeah, absolutely. So Austin gets one back in the 28th minute. Ethan Finley scores this one. So like I said, in these road games, Austin has been looking to play a bit more direct in general. I talked about the midfielders hitting those long diagonals, but the fullbacks, I think especially the left back, both Kolmanich and Gallagher have been looking to do this a lot, to play to Finley or to Wolf on that right wing. Those have been like Diego's game is kind of to receive the ball and turn in. He'll make those runs, and we're playing those balls to him some as well, but usually he's looking to come in and receive the ball, and the right wing, Wolf and Finley, will usually look to kind of push on that side. So Finley gets the start here. Gallagher receives the ball and turns, looks to hit a long diagonal pass to Finley, who's making a run. I think he probably hit it a little short. Either he was aiming for Urruti and just wasn't accurate, or he was aiming for Finley on the backside and just hit a little short. So Danny Wilson, their middle center back in their back three, he was there, but he just kind of ducks under the ball thinking nobody was behind him. He's like, oh, I'll just let the keeper catch this one. And so he ducks under it. Austin Trusty is there, but he was thinking that Danny Wilson was going to play with his head, so he doesn't really have time to adjust and probably doesn't see Finley continuing his run there. So neither of those guys touch it. Finley gets on the end of it. He's one-on-one with the keeper and just dinks it over the keeper and finishes really well there. So a slightly lucky play, but good on Gallagher for just trying something, and then good on Finley for not stopping his run whenever it looked like the Colorado players were going to win it.
And this is the kind of stuff we wanted to see out of Finley, right? That we haven't for so long, is this like direct action, or that we hadn't seen, I guess, since his we scored like 2 goals in his substitute appearance early on against Miami. But, it's just like he seemed very ponderous on the ball. And this was like a really well positioned and well played shot from him. Clever finish. Good to see. I think his dad made sure everybody knew that we shouldn't be surprised by this. And he scored 52 goals in his MLS career and was also a national team player.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at Ethan Finley as kind of a scrub, but the guy has played really well in his past. So let's just hope he can keep it up for Austin. Second goal for Austin comes in stoppage time in the first half. Driussi scores this one. So Driussi makes a really good bending run into the box. This is like dying seconds. Probably I think they got kickoff and then they blew the whistle. But Gallagher again plays a really nice ball in from deep as Driussi makes that kind of bending run right into the middle of the box. Driussi lets the ball kind of fall across him. He could have easily taken it on his head, but just like the angle he was at, I think he knew that it was just him and the keeper as the ball was falling in front of him. And so instead of taking it on his head, he just kind of turns and lets the ball fall across his body and then side foots it past the keeper. It was a really classy finish there to be able to take it across his body, like over his head, and then still place it like that. Like, it just shows the quality that guy has.
Yeah. So two thoughts on this. I mean, John Gallagher is involved in both these assists, and he made MLS Team of the Week for this match too. Like, are these 2 lucky plays, or are we seeing like good continued maturation of John Gallagher? Is, I guess, question one.
Not lucky. I think there's lucky elements to the first one, but you make your own luck. Like, it's one of those things, like, you have to try stuff. It's not always going to come off, but they were looking for this pattern of something that was working, and Gallagher saw it was on and tried it again, and it worked. And so I don't think we can expect John Gallagher to get 2 assists every game, but it's a thing that I think he's being asked to do and is executing on it and putting balls in positions where they're dangerous for forwards to get onto. So yeah, I think you can give credit to John Gallagher on these.
And is there some way that the fullbacks are set up, or the way that they played in this match, that led to that leads to these kinds of assists or this kind of offensive involvement? Or is this just Gallagher playing to his strengths in Wolf ball?
I think it's partially the fact that we've been doing this all season, but maybe haven't been doing these longer balls as effectively all season. But those fullbacks are sitting a little deeper and tucking in a little bit more, as opposed to always overlapping and always getting forward. Our wingers are kind of taking care of that, which allows the fullbacks to kind of be a bit more involved in build up and at times whenever like they're being told to look for that ball across the field, which I think last season that was not ever a thing that they were looking for, which what caused the horseshoe of sadness is, okay, the only option is to play up the line or back to the midfield. And so if you're not looking for these other things, like you're not, like that's what's going to happen. You're just going to pass it in a U shape. But I think they're being told, as part of that positioning, staying a little bit deeper, one of the options they're looking for is either inside, like playing to like Driussi's feet inside, or looking at that backside, watching for either the other fullback or the winger making a run on the backside. And so I think it is part of the game plan, and Gallagher's been doing it really well.
And I guess one of the other things I was thinking about that we've been, last year we talked about how we couldn't break lines. There's two ways you do it, right? You dribble through them or you pass through them. And in this match particularly, like we did both, right? Like I think Danny does a really good job of breaking lines by dribbling through, and then you see these stuff like these passes from Gallagher, and we're doing both. And I think that's a big difference between this year and last year. Last year we were doing neither of those things.
Gabrielson dribbled through a few lines in this game too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, which he's got these like hidden flashes of offensive greatness that he breaks out from time to time, which I didn't expect to see when we signed him, but he's been good.
Yeah. So, I don't think we said this at the beginning of the Colorado match, but Kipp Keller and Ruben Gabrielson were our only center backs available in this game. Ruben, I thought in both of these games was really good for the most part. A few shaky moments, as seems to be kind of par for the course, but overall really good. Talking about dribbling, there was a moment I noticed in the rewatch of the Colorado match where Keller gets the ball and nobody's pressuring him, and he's on the same side of the field as Alex Ring, and Alex Ring is kind of like telling him what to do and like directing traffic. It's like the puppet master, like driving Kipp Keller essentially. And this is another one of those things, like he just like at times, if it doesn't go as scripted, like he doesn't have the experience to like know what decision to make in those moments, but nobody is pressuring him. And Alex Ring starts dropping and has his hand up in the air and like a come hither motions, like, come on, take that space. And finally Keller does it and steps into the space and makes some guys commit to him, and then plays a ball, and it ends up getting into a more dangerous spot. But like just another example of the things that Kipp Keller needs to learn, essentially. All right, so that goal was the end of the first half. Second half, Austin comes out and looks like a bit more like Austin, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They looked really threatening. They were moving. The midfield was connecting, the attack was connecting. We get I don't know exactly what the time was, but we get what we thought was a maxi goal 50 something minutes into it. That gets called back because of a handball, correct? On Sebastian Driussi?
Right, which
via VAR.
This one was weird to me. Like I think I defended the ref on a couple of the prior calls. I'm not going to do it on this one.
Okay.
Because
good.
Like it's one of those. So I think we've had a few calls like this break our way. So maybe this is just our time or karma or whatever you want to call it. But we've had some calls where it's one of those, like the clear and obvious rule falls in our favor. It didn't get called on the field, or it did get called on the field, but it's not clear and obvious on the replay. So therefore we can't overturn it. This one, it did not get called on the field. It did not look clear and obvious, and it got overturned to a handball, which that's why it shocked me. Like, did it touch his arm? Yeah, maybe, but I didn't think it was clear and obvious based on that replay. So I don't feel like the ref had grounds to overturn it based on what he saw from the video evidence.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And then so Maxi, I guess, took that personally, and just a few minutes later scored another one, and then he talked a little bit of trash to the ref, right? After he scored.
It wasn't on the broadcast, but from our fellow Verdes on the ground, they said that he kind of like enthusiastically referenced to his hand, and then said something like essentially saying like, that one didn't touch my hand, did it? Which you gotta love Maxi for stuff like that.
For sure.
So that was the go ahead, right? So
yeah, that's the go ahead. That was at 59.
59 minutes in, Michael Barrios comes in the 67th minute. And then not long after that, Austin starts making some subs. So Lima comes in for Jimenez, which I thought was like a great move in the moment. Lima is not as good Jimenez is not as good defensively in these moments. Plus, just having fresh legs against the fast wingers that Colorado has, like regardless of how Jimenez looked, like get Lima's legs on there. Owen Wolf comes on for Diego Fagundez. Again, Fagundez played all of the Charlotte game, so maybe to do with, I don't know, like at least something to do with rotation here. Not long after that, Kipp Keller gets his second foul, which we already talked about. So Austin goes down to 10 men, but also we have no center backs to replace him with. So Alex Ring slides back to center back. Then not long after that, Felipe comes on for Ethan Finley. So I believe it ended up being Felipe and who would have been in the middle of the field there? Felipe and
Danny, right?
Yeah, Felipe and Danny in the middle of the field. Wolf on the right, Driussi on the left, and Gite up top. He came in at 80 as well. Comes in and he's at the top by himself, kind of leading the press by himself.
Which honestly, that's a good thing. This is one of the things he's good at. When you're down a man, you just need somebody to like lead the press alone and like body people and occupy some space and some ball and like slow a game down. This is one of Musa Gite's skills.
I think he's not as good at leading the press by himself. Like Maxi would be way better in that scenario, but in this situation, whenever you're defending deep and need to launch a ball at somebody, yeah, Musa is who you want in that situation. Like aim it at Musa's pecs and just let him like bounce off his chest and onto his feet. Like that's what you want. And he does good in that situation. So Austin sees it out. I'm trying to think of how many big chances there were towards the end of the game. Can you remember any?
So I feel like there were a lot of times when I felt like we were being threatened, especially by Barrios. But Barrios had that one ball. I can't remember what that was. I don't even think did it end up being a shot? The like the one where he was open on Stuver and yeah, I don't even see it on the list of shots.
I'm looking at the expected goals chart here.
Yeah.
So the Keller red card was like 74 or something like that. It looks like Colorado had 4 or 5 chances, none of them above 5% on the XG chart. So Austin did a good job of kind of keeping them at bay through then. They got 7 minutes of stoppage time,
it's
which
the longest 7 minutes I've ever
seen. Concerning. But they had pulled it out, ended up with the 3-2 win. I don't know why we have to do it like this every time. Like, why do we have to give up 2 goals to be able to do this? Which brings up a stat that Austin has gone down 2-0 4 times this season, and they've not lost any of those games. We've won 2 and drawn 2. Games we've gone down 2-0, which is insane.
That is, I don't know why that is. Like, what is it? We just don't start paying attention until we're down 2 or what? I don't know. Or it's just hopefully it's a random statistical anomaly. I would like to not go down 2-0 if we could do that. Like, let's score first and make it a little bit easier. Plus, if we score first at home, we all get Plugger's wings, and who doesn't love that?
I've gotten the card, but I've never actually gone to Pluckers. I've actually never been to Pluckers, period.
Oh, well, we've been to Pluckers, but I've never actually redeemed a card at Pluckers. They're wings. They're fine. Don't trash the sponsors.
Anybody or anything else we want to cover before we jump into the rest of the Patreon questions and the Atlanta preview?
No, I think we've hit on everything. I mean, I think getting those 2 wins, this is a tough stretch on the road. So getting 6 points out of all 3 matches is good. And I think we talk about Atlanta. We could talk about how it's good that we already have the 6 in the bank, because going beyond that, it's challenging. But to be sitting second in the West on 34 points after 18 matches, when at this point last year, after 18 matches, we were on 16, so we've more than doubled our point total year to date, and we've tripled our goal output year to date. I mean, I think we should just take a moment to appreciate exactly how much better this club has been in the 2021 version of it.
Yeah, the table is very encouraging right now. So we're 2 points behind LAFC. They have 36, we have 34. Then third place, RSL is finally on the same number of games played as us. They're 5 points behind us. LA in fourth place is 7 points behind us. Dallas is also 7 points behind us. So like, it looks good. We could lose one game, maybe 2 games, and still be in second place potentially, that's a good spot to be in. And then another thing I was looking at, the last 2 seasons, the playoff line has hit at 48 points. That was the last team that got into the playoffs, was at 48 points. So Austin now with 34 points, we could go the rest of the season averaging less than 1 point per game, that puts you at like bottom of the table level. The Kansas City is at 0.84. I'm not going to do the math correctly here, but I think we could probably get 0.84 points per game for the rest of the season and still make the playoffs, which is a great spot to be in. All right, should we jump into a couple of listener questions, Jeremiah?
Yeah, let's take them because we've got one legitimate, straightforward soccer question and one question that Patreon subscribers will get to ask.
Let's stay on the theme and answer this second one first. So this one is from Shizzy on Twitter, and they ask, my dream is to attend a home playoff game at Q2. What place do we need to finish to secure a home game? Do you know the answer to this one?
That place is fourth or higher.
Correct.
Yep.
Fourth place guarantees us 1 home game. After that is essentially just the highest seed, right? So it would depend on who wins on the other part of the bracket that we go to. So it's kind of up to fate. But the higher we get, the more likely we are to play at home more. But 4 guarantees us 1 game.
Yeah, and like you said, we're now, of course, we've got one, I guess we've played one more game than LA Galaxy, who's sitting fourth, but we're 7 points clear of them now.
Yeah.
So we're in good shape.
All right. The other question comes from one of our favorite question askers, ATX Burkamp Lover 6969420.
Which I think is Devin, right?
It is. I didn't know if he wanted to say his name on the show, but I guess we would just say first name, then it's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. I mean, how many bird camp lovers do you know too? Like, I feel like that may be a giveaway.
Who would win in a fight, a grackle or a magpie? Jeremiah, I did a little bit of research to answer this one, but it sounds like you did a significant amount of research here.
I did more research than I wanted to know, and I feel like this is the kind of question somebody asks us just to like make us do homework to see if we'll do it.
So let me give you my less educated answer,
okay,
and you can give me your very educated answer. So I looked up average size of each of these birds, and we're in danger of getting into some Monty Python and the Holy Grail territory, but there are multiple species of magpie, including an Australian one and an American one. I'm using the American version of the magpie, which is on average larger than a grackle. And so the magpie has the weight advantage here. I think of grackles as like kind of the city bird, and magpie is like a mountain country bird. And so it maybe be 2 fighting styles as well.
You think that they may be tougher? You think like
maybe just tougher in different ways.
Like street smart? Is that what you're thinking? From
Yeah, a grackle will pull a shiv out of its sock, whereas a magpie will maybe I don't know, be more of like just like straight up bare knuckle boxer.
I think that's probably okay. And the other thing that I did not know before is that grackles and magpies are from different families of birds. Grackles are icterids, while magpies are corvids, which are also crows are also the same thing. Did not know that. I got really excited.
It's not a thing I would have even thought about, Jeremiah.
Yeah, who knew? I just thought they were both black birds. And then I guess apparently magpies has this reputation for being like, so this is what I read about. I was like trying to look at aggressiveness for both of them. And so magpies have this ill-received reputation for being swooping, attacking birds. which apparently only happens during swooping season, which is a little not that much of the year. And so
they are also food stealing birds.
They are food stealing birds.
They have a nickname, which is camp robber.
That's good.
Some people call them camp robbers instead of magpies.
But so I guess the thing that I'm going to go grackle, just on this aggressiveness thing, because I feel like grackles are aggressive all the time, nonstop. Like they're loud, they're tenacious, they won't quit, and I feel like magpies have like a season or a time when they're going to like go after it, and then you're going to kind of back off afterwards. And I feel like the grackle just does not have any quit in them. So
grackles grackle 24/7, 365.
Absolutely. As anybody that's ever been doing HEB knows, grackles grackle all the time. So although being smaller and being lighter, I feel like just like the raw tenacity is going to pull the grackle out on top.
Well, if you want to be like Devin and make us answer stupid questions like this, then you can go to our Patreon. You can find the link in the show notes or on moontowersoccer.com and become a member there. Let's jump into our Atlanta United preview, Jeremiah. So give us a quick history lesson.
Yeah, so Atlanta started playing 2017. They've always had great attendance. They originally played at an outdoor stadium called Bobby Dodd Stadium, named after Georgia coach Bobby Dodd, I'm guessing. Moved into Mercedes-Benz in 2017, won a title in their second season, led by one Joseph Martinez, who had probably one of the greatest seasons in league history. But then after 2018, Tata Martino left, and they've kind of not been nearly as good since then. Over the last, 3 MLS seasons, they've seen a real downfall.
Yeah, Joseph Martinez has rarely been healthy since then. They sold Miguel Almiron after that season, and as much attention as Martinez got, and he was the one scoring the goals, I think Miguel Almiron was the best player on that team, and they didn't really find a replacement for him like they thought they were going to. And then the coaching change after Martino leaves, they never got a coach in that really fit their style again.
Yeah, who came in? Was Frank de Boer the next one?
I can't remember if he was immediately, but he was the next long-term guy.
Yeah.
And he was essentially trying to change everything that was in the DNA of these players and making them play a bit more reserve style, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah, so then last season, 2021, Gonzalo Pineda comes in from Seattle late in the year. I think he's the third or fourth coach.
Yeah, because they fired the
Martino.
other guy. I can't remember what the other guys, the South American guy that I can't remember his name, but he got fired. In similar circumstances, Miguel Angel Ramirez, like everybody apparently just hated the guy.
Yeah, right. Right. And then like in this stuff, the front office is kind of chaotic. Probably still is, It was like a model franchise, and it kind of turned into a mess. They finished 5th in the East, go on the road to NYCFC, lose to NYCFC in the first round. And that was kind of the end of 2021. And this season, Barco, who they paid a lot of money and didn't get a ton out of, is out. George Bello's out. They've still got a whole expensive roster and high hopes, but they have not been very good again this year. So they're 11th in the East, 26 goals for and 26 goals against. So they're 0 goal differential. Still have Joseph Martinez, but they just don't seem to have like a ton of playmakers beyond him.
They've got Thiago Almada, who I think has had some injury stuff. Luis Araujo, I can speak Spanish, but I can't say Portuguese names to save my life. But he's very good as well. But he's just like, I think he took a while to kind of settle, but he's been very good. But they've just had a lot of other inconsistencies in the team. As of last week, they had 9 players unavailable, several of them long term. So Ozzy Alonso tore his ACL, Brad Guzan ruptured an Achilles, he's out long term. Miles Robinson ruptured an Achilles, he's out long term. Andrew Gutman has been out for a few weeks. Ronald Hernandez, who had a few really good games, is out for several weeks. Brooks Lennon, who's been one of their most consistent players for the last few years, he's out for, I think, a couple of months. Tyler Wolff, who's been getting significant minutes, he's been out on international duty with the US U20s and then has been rumored to be moving to Belgium soon on a loan. And then Santiago Sosa was out last week with illness, may be back this week. But they've had a lot of injuries. have really struggled to replace Miles Robinson on that back line. And then Joseph Martinez has, whenever he's been on the field, he's been good, but he just hasn't been able to stay consistently on the field. So it's a team with some really talented players in the attack, but they just haven't been able to maintain any consistency to really get anything going for long stretches at a time.
So all that would lead one to believe that Atlanta is a team ripe for Austin to squeak out some other kind of result on the road. But we got to kind of look at Austin too, right? And we're not in a great position either with injuries, suspensions, and we're playing Houston on Tuesday. And at some point, this schedule congestion has to catch up with the club too.
Yeah, so Austin's missing players include Danny Pereira and Kipp Keller, who are both suspended on cards. Julio Cascante, who has a hamstring injury, you would guess wouldn't be back by Saturday if it's a hamstring thing. Like, hamstrings just don't get better that quickly. Johan Romagna was out with the concussion protocol for the Colorado game. He could potentially be back, but as we learned doing research with Matt Beasler last year, I think the rule, like the concussion protocol rule, says like 7 days or however many days after the last symptoms. And so he would have essentially needed to be completely clear the day after the Colorado game. Or no, not even then, because that was on Monday. So it was in the Charlotte game. So if he was clear the next day, then he could potentially be ready for Atlanta. But like, there's a good chance that that's not happening. Yohan Valencia is still recovering from meniscus surgery. I would expect he'll be back soonish, but still probably 2 or 3 weeks. And then Freddie Kleeman, who would have been maybe the emergency call-in, like we saw last year, he was on loan, but he ended up tearing his ACL, is out for the year. And then Maxey went down and had to come out of the game in the Colorado game. It looked like it was like Wolf said in the post-game press conference that he was hyperventilating. I saw the medical team like kind of with their hand on his wrist, like counting his pulse or something. And then they were giving him oxygen on the field. So you would hope that's just kind of a short-term thing and that he would be back, but maybe not. I'm less worried about the striker one, but midfield and the back line is a little concerning.
Very much so. So what do you, because I've seen you opine this on Twitter, like, because I know some people were thinking we play 3 at the back. Some people were like, oh, well, let's just punt this game and then we'll like rally for Houston, which I don't see Josh Wolf doing. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't think we have to punt games this year. Like, we have enough good players that, like, last year punting a game meant not playing the same players every week, which we had to do to have a chance in any game. And so by making subs, you were essentially giving up on a game.
Yeah, but you're bringing in Aiden Stanley and Manny Perez. And yeah,
it's crazy. Like, we can still put out a decent lineup, although we'll be playing somebody out of position. I think Chris Bills said that he wanted to see Gabriel's like a back 3, essentially. Gabrielson in the middle with Lima and Ring on either side of him. I would rather stick with the back 4 and put Ring at center back. That way you're playing one player out of position as opposed to 2 players out of position with Lima and Ring playing center back. You're playing one guy at center back who's not used to playing there. And then the rest of the team is like not that hard to pick, really. I think you rotate Lima back in to start on the right. Maybe play Kolmanich if Gallagher needs rotation. For the record, John Gallagher is my starting left back at this point. I think he's won that and he's earned it. So if he's fit and ready to go and doesn't need rotating, I want to see him, but maybe he does need to be rotated. Either way, that's fine. In the midfield, I think you see Felipe. This one gets tricky too with not being able to pick Pereira, doesn't it? So who's going to be in the midfield with Felipe?
So you don't have no Pereira and you don't have Valencia. So I mean, you play, you give Owen Wolf his opportunity to play there?
Yeah, that's not a bad shout, actually. I think that's what I would want to see. The alternative would be to move Fagundez inside and play Wolf and Finley wide. even then you're playing someone on a side they're not comfortable with. So I think I want to see Felipe, Wolf, Driussi in the midfield, and then Finley and Fagundez on the wing. And then if Maxi's good to go, play Maxi. And if he's not, I'd say let Houston start again.
Yeah, I would do this. I would do the same up front, I think.
Yeah, so like it's not great, but it's also not as bad as we had it last year for most of the games.
Yeah, and especially when you look at what Atlanta's playing. I mean, it's like, you know, they've, like you mentioned, they've got so many guys out. Like, they've got issues too, so they're not playing their best 11. So I feel like it's you can roll a competitive squad out for this one. And I think you just have to keep picking up points. I mean, I know Houston's like, you just can't give up on a match for the potential of like something else in 3 days, right? Like, you take it one game at a time and roll out your best 11 and pick up some points here. And if that means you don't, you know, you're not as good against Houston, then you play the best 11 you have then on Tuesday.
Yeah, and like Felipe's not throwing a game. Like
right.
He's not as talented as some of the other guys in the field, but he's not throwing a game. Ruben Gabrielson's not throwing a game. Like, these guys are going to play. And so like maybe you play a bit more reserved, but as far as like throwing it, like it's not going to happen. But it is really nice to have the luxury of having won these recent games, because we're looking at this stretch of road games as a really tough set of games. And the fact that we've gotten 6 points out of it so far, if this Atlanta one doesn't go well, it's less of a moral hit to like the psyche of the players than it would have been had we lost those 2 games and we're going into this game with a depleted roster.
Yeah, I mean, practically speaking, you get blown out against Atlanta. You entered this match in second place in the West. You ended this match in second place in the West.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the good thing about banking these points early.
Yeah, and then you go into Houston. We're gonna have Pereira and Keller back. Maybe not all the players will be back, but that's already like a decent set of players to choose from just with those 2 guys back for Houston. So it's really like, yeah, I don't. We're in good shape. Even if this Atlanta game doesn't go well, we're in good shape. All right. Anything else on that game?
No, I think we've covered it. I'm looking forward to seeing what we pull out here.
I'm going to be at this game, Jeremiah. I'm going to Atlanta. Ashley and I are going. My parents are going to be there. I think we're taking a pretty good crew. I think it's like 160, 170 that have bought with the group, and then some others who have bought with friends or family in Atlanta. So we'll have a pretty good crowd there. People listening, if I have met you before, I can't wait to see you in Atlanta. If I've not met you before, please come say hi. I'd love to meet some listeners, some new friends, and hang out in Georgia together. All right. Before we wrap up, we'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And then if you want to continue the conversation, come find us on Twitter at LVAHero87 and JBentley_ATX, and then at Moon Tower Soccer on Twitter and Instagram. And then visit the Striker Texas website, where you can get a 30% discount with the code MoonTower22 with a capital M, MoonTower22 with a capital M. Jeremiah, what should folks look out for in the Striker this week?
I think one article that stood out for me this week was Chris Bills that wrote an article about how the academy is bursting with the potential and showing promise at the MLS Next playoffs. And I think it just kind of shows the kind of things you can only get from the Striker. It's like you don't get long-form articles from respected journalists about how academy teams do in MLS Next tournaments anywhere else except for the Striker Texas. So I thought it was a good example of the kind of content you can get there.
Absolutely. All right. We also want to remind you about the Austin Soccer Foundation Gala on July 14th. You can go, do you know what their website is off the top of your head, Jeremiah?
AustinSoccerFoundation.org. And I think we'll both be at that one too.
I'm planning on it. That's the plan right now. So hopefully we'll see y'all there.
I have a Verde tuxedo jacket that I plan on wearing too. So that's how you'll be able to identify me.
I'm the one in the Verde tuxedo jacket. All right. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week with a new episode of Moon Tower Soccer, where we will review the Atlanta match, and then we'll preview both the Copa Tejas matches, and then cover any other Austin FC news that happens. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Thank for nothing, you never.
La gente
Oh my God.